Some women are not rescued because they are loved. Some are rescued because they saw something powerful men would kill to bury. Hannah Brooks was just a waitress in a dying Louisiana diner working the midnight shift while rain beat against the windows and coffee burned on the warmer. She had no family to call, no money to run, and no reason to believe anyone was coming for her. Then 4 men walked in asking about a silver Cadillac, a black briefcase, and the night she looked too long. What happens next is not just a story about danger. It is about survival, control, trust, and the terrifying price of being protected by a man the whole city fears. Stay with this story until the end. Like the video and comment where you're watching from. The bell above the diner had not rung yet. The storm had not brought Declan Ward to her door yet. Before the blood, before the broken glass, before Hannah Brooks became a name whispered by men with guns, she was just a tired waitress trying to disappear beneath the buzz of bad lights and the smell of burnt coffee. Magnolia. Stop Diner sat off Interstate 10 like something the highway had forgotten to swallow. Its neon sign blinked pink and blue through the Louisiana dark, half the letters dead, the rest fighting hard to stay alive. Truckers came in when the rain got too heavy. Night nurses stopped by after double shifts. Men with wedding rings turned inward sat in corner booths and stared at eggs they did not want. Nobody came there because the food was good. They came because it was open, because it was cheap, because the coffee was strong enough to keep a man awake and bitter enough to remind him he still had a mouth. Hannah worked the graveyard shift because nobody else wanted it. At midnight, the world turned honest in ugly ways. People said things when they were tired. They cried into napkins. They counted coins before ordering. They asked for coffee and stared through her like she was part of the furniture. Hannah preferred it that way. Being invisible had kept her alive longer than being pretty polite or hopeful ever had. She was 24, though some mornings her bones felt 40. Her hair was dark and usually pinned up with a pencil because she could never find a clip when she needed one. Her uniform was pale blue, washed so many times the fabric had gone thin at the elbows. She kept a pen behind her ear, a folded $5 bill in her shoe, and a kitchen knife taped under the counter near the register where Walt would not see it. That knife was not for drama. It was for memory. There were doors in foster homes that locked from the outside. There were men who smiled too kindly. There were women who called cruelty discipline and hunger character building. Hannah had learned young that the world did not care if you were scared. It only cared whether you could run fast enough before fear made you freeze. She had been 16 when she left the last home. No suitcase, no plan. $47 stolen from a coffee can and a jacket too thin for January. Her real last name had been one of the many things she stopped using. Brooks came from a green road sign outside Baton Rouge. It had been raining then, too, water streaming down the glass of a Greyhound station, while she stared at that sign and decided a new name was easier to carry than the old one. Hannah Brooks sounded like a girl with a mailbox, a girl with school pictures, a girl somebody might look for if she went missing. She knew better, but the name helped. Years later, she still carried herself like someone ready to leave a room in the middle of a sentence. She slept light. She faced doors. She never let anyone walk behind her without knowing where their hands were. She kept cash hidden in 3 places and trusted banks even less than she trusted men. Walt Jennings had hired her 2 years earlier without asking too many questions. He was 68, broad in the belly, bad in the knees, and stubborn in the softest way. His hair had gone white above his ears and his hands shook when he was tired, though he blamed it on too much coffee. He owned Magnolia Stop because his wife had loved it. After she died, he kept the diner open like closing it would mean burying her twice. The first night Hannah asked for work, she expected him to say no. He looked at her thin jacket, her split lip, and the way her eyes kept counting exits. Then he slid an apron across the counter. "Can you carry plates without dropping them?" "I can carry worse," she said. Walt looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded. Shift starts at 6. That was all. No questions about where she came from, no lecture, no pity heavy enough to choke on. He paid cash when she needed it. Let her take home soup when he made too much. Once, when her roommates locked her out after a fight over rent, he pretended not to notice her sleeping in the storage room between sacks of flour and boxes of paper cups. Hannah never thanked him properly. Gratitude felt dangerous when spoken out loud. But she showed up on time. She cleaned the coffee machine without being asked. She chased drunks out before they broke chairs. She stayed late when Walt's knees swelled and he needed help counting the register. That was how she loved people. Quietly, usefully, without saying the word. The night everything changed began like any other bad night in South Louisiana. Rain came down hard after 10, turning the parking lot silver and the highway black. The air smelled of wet asphalt fryer grease and river mud. Every few minutes, lightning turned the windows white, and for one sharp second, the whole diner looked like a photograph taken at the scene of a crime. Hannah had 3 customers left by 1:30. A trucker asleep with one hand around a coffee mug. A college kid in a Tulane sweatshirt pretending to study while scrolling through his phone. A woman in red heels who had been crying in the bathroom and now sat in booth 7 with sunglasses on, though it was past midnight. Walt was in the kitchen listening to old blues low on the radio. Hannah wiped the same counter twice because stillness made her nervous. Across the highway, the Blue Heron Motel flickered under a broken sign. The place rented rooms by the night and secrets by the hour. Its paint peeled in long strips. Its vending machine stole money. The woman at the front desk smoked under the awning and never looked directly at anyone who paid in cash. At 1:47, Walt called from the kitchen. "Hannah trash is full." She tied off the black bag and dragged it through the back door. The rain hit her first cold and mean. It slid down her collar, soaked the sleeves of her uniform, turned the gravel behind the diner into dark paste. She hauled the bag to the dumpster, lifted the lid, and froze with one hand still in the air. Across the highway, a silver Cadillac sat in the motel lot. It should not have bothered her. Cars came and went all night. But this one idled beneath the only working light polished clean despite the rain windows dark enough to hide whatever waited inside. The engine purred low, expensive, and patient. A man crossed the lot from room 12. He wore a brown leather jacket darkened by rain and walked with a limp that made one shoulder dip each time his right foot hit the ground. In his hand was a black metal briefcase. Hannah knew the shape of ordinary things. Lunchboxes, tool cases, cheap luggage, cash drawers. That briefcase was not ordinary. Another man stood beside the Cadillac. Tall, pale eyes, gray suit that fit too well. No umbrella. The rain touched him and somehow made him look cleaner, like even weather knew better than to inconvenience him. He did not fidget. He did not check over his shoulder. He waited like the world was always late to appointments he had already paid for. The man in the brown jacket handed him the briefcase. The man in the suit opened it. Hannah saw wrapped stacks inside banded tight, dull green under the parking lot light. Money. Too much money. Then the trunk of the Cadillac popped open. The man in the suit lifted one stack, checked it, and gave a small nod. The man with the limp said something Hannah could not hear over the rain. The man in the suit smiled without warmth. In the passenger seat, a blonde woman sat smoking. The orange tip of the cigarette glowed in the dark. Her hair was cut short and neat, the kind of style women got when they had important jobs and no time to explain themselves. A diamond flashed at her ear when she turned her head. Her face was beautiful in a hard, tired way. She kept looking at her phone, then at the man in the suit, then at the road. Not bored. Scared. Hannah knew fear when she saw it. Fear had a posture, a rhythm. It lived in the shoulders and the throat in the way fingers moved too fast around a cigarette. The blonde woman saw her. For a breath, they looked at each other across Rain Highway and bad luck. The woman's eyes widened. Just a little. Then the man in the suit turned. His pale eyes found Hannah like a hand closing around her neck. She dropped the trash bag. The sound was swallowed by thunder. Hannah did the only smart thing she could do. She looked away. She turned back toward the diner, walking instead of running because running admitted guilt. Her shoes slipped on wet gravel. Her heartbeat climbed into her mouth. She pushed through the back door and stood in the kitchen water dripping from her hair onto the tile. Walt looked up from the grill. "You see a ghost?" Hannah reached for a towel. "No." Her voice sounded wrong. Walt heard it. He always heard too much. "Hannah." She dried her hands slowly. Trash bag split. Made a mess. Walt studied her. The old radio hissed between songs. Trouble got a face. She forced herself to laugh. Trouble always has a face. He waited. The truth pressed against her teeth. A silver Cadillac. A briefcase. Cash. A woman afraid to breathe. A man with eyes like winter. But telling Walt would give the thing shape. It would make it real. It would pull him into it. So she shook her head. "I'm fine." Walt did not believe her, but he let her lie. That was one of the kindest things he knew how to do. The rest of the shift crawled. Hannah poured coffee with steady hands because shaking hands got noticed. She smiled at booth 7. She refilled the trucker's mug. She swept the floor-counted change, turned chairs onto tables. At 3:15, when the diner finally emptied, she locked the front door and looked across the highway. The Cadillac was gone. Room 12 was dark. The motel lot looked ordinary again. That made it worse. Ordinary places were where terrible things hid best. She went home at dawn to the apartment she shared with 2 women who worked days at a seafood place near the French Quarter. The place smelled of hairspray, old takeout, and damp carpet. Someone had left a curling iron plugged in on the bathroom sink. Someone had eaten her yogurt and put the empty container back in the fridge. Hannah stood under a weak shower until the water went cold. When she closed her eyes, she saw pale eyes turning toward her through rain. She slept for 90 minutes and woke with her hand under her pillow, fingers closed around nothing. 2 days passed. Nobody came. The diner filled and emptied. Walt complained about the supplier raising the price of eggs. A drunk man tried to pay with a casino chip. The neon sign lost another letter. Hannah convinced herself that maybe she had not been seen clearly. Maybe the rain had blurred her. Maybe the man had decided she was nobody. Nobody was safe. Nobody was forgettable. Nobody did not get hunted. On the 3rd night, the bell above the door rang at 11:22. Hannah looked up. A man stepped inside wearing a navy jacket and boots too polished for highway mud. He had dark hair combed back from a narrow face and a scar along his upper lip that pulled his smile slightly crooked. 2 other men waited outside under the awning smoking without speaking. He sat at the counter. "Black coffee," he said. Hannah poured it. His eyes moved over her name tag. "Hannah." She set the cup down. "Coffee's $2. He placed a 50 on the counter. "Keep it." She did not touch the bill. "Coffee's still $2. His smile widened. "My name's Travis Doyle. Congratulations." He laughed softly like he enjoyed being tested by someone he already planned to hurt. "You work nights, right? Most people sitting in front of me at midnight figured that part out." He leaned forward. "See anything strange lately?" Hannah picked up a rag and wiped a clean spot beside the napkin dispenser. "This place is strange every night." Across the road. Blue heron. Maybe a silver car. Maybe a man with a case. The world narrowed around the sound of rain on glass. Hannah kept wiping. You want motel gossip? Asked the woman at the desk. I'm asking you. She met his eyes then. Calm cost her, but she paid it. I see truckers' coffee stains and roaches big enough to pay rent. That's it. Doyle looked at her mouth, then her hands, then the knife scar near her thumb from a kitchen accident 6 months earlier. You sure know? That made him pause. Hannah slid the coffee bill toward him. I'm sure coffee's $2. For a moment his face went empty, then he stood. Careful, Hannah Brooks. Some things get expensive when people lie about them. He left the 50 on the counter and walked out. The bell jingled behind him. Hannah did not move until his car pulled away. Then she picked up the bill with 2 fingers and dropped it in the trash. Walt came out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Who was that? Nobody. Walt looked at the trash can. Nobody leave $50 warnings now. Hannah's throat tightened. Walt. His face softened. You in something? No. You sure? She wanted to say yes. She wanted to say no. Instead, she looked toward the windows where rain turned the world into streaks of silver. I might have seen something I wasn't supposed to. Walt came around the counter slowly. How bad? Hannah swallowed. Bad enough that I don't want you asking me that. He sighed, heavy and tired. You should go to the police. The laugh slipped out before she could stop it. It was small and bitter. The police don't protect girls like me. You don't know that. I know enough. Walt leaned both hands on the counter. You got somewhere to go. She thought of her apartment, the broken lock, the roommate who left strangers on the couch, the $27 in her sock drawer. Sure. Hannah. I said sure. He looked at her for a long time. Then he reached under the register, took out a small envelope and set it beside her hand. She opened it. Cash. More than he could afford to give. No, she said. Yes. I'm not taking your money. You're not. You're taking your pay early. I don't get paid that much. You do tonight. Her eyes burned. She hated that most of all. Walt, I can handle myself. He nodded like he believed her, and knew belief was not enough. I know you can. Doesn't mean you should have to. She folded the envelope but did not put it away. That was as close to accepting help as she could get. Across town, in a private room above a closed jazz club on Frenchman Street, Declan Ward listened to a man beg for more time. The room smelled of old smoke-polished wood and expensive whiskey. Nobody was drinking. Music thumped faintly through the floor from a neighboring bar. Outside, tourists wandered through neon and brass notes, laughing too loud safe because they did not know whose streets they were standing on. Declan sat near the window, one ankle crossed over his knee, his dark suit unwrinkled, his expression unreadable. The man standing before him owned 2 shipping companies and 1 failing conscience. His name was Ed Markham. He had moved money for the wrong people and hoped Declan would not notice. Declan always noticed. I can fix it, Markham said. Sweat shone on his upper lip. I just need a week. Declan's gaze stayed on the street below. You had 6 months. Rusk's people pressured me. That name changed the air. Clayton Rusk. Declan turned from the window. Say that again. Markham's fear sharpened. I didn't know at first. It was routed through shell accounts. Same pattern as before. Offshore transfers, construction invoices, port storage fees. Then I saw the name Pike attached to one of the couriers. Trevor Pike. Rusk's cleanup man. Declan stood. The men near the door went still. Where Markham licked his lips. Blue Heron Motel. 2 nights ago. Cash exchange. Big one. I heard there was a witness. Declan's face did not change. But something in him went quiet in a dangerous way. For 3 years, Clayton Rusk had been smoke. Money moving through false names. Bodies found with no paper trail. Prosecutors circling and losing their jobs. Witnesses changing statements or disappearing before court dates. 3 years since Michael Ward died face down in an alley with rain in his hair and a folder of banking records missing from his car. Michael had been 28. Too honest for the world, Declan understood. Too stubborn to take the money Declan offered him to leave town. The last thing Michael had said to him was through a cracked phone line. "I found the spine of it December. If I pull this right, the whole thing breaks." By morning, Michael was dead. The official report said robbery. His wallet had still been in his pocket. Declan had never raised his voice after that day. Rage became more useful when he taught it manners. Now there was a witness, a living one. Declan looked at Markham. "Name." "I don't have it." Declan took one step closer. Markham nearly folded. "Waitress." "Magnolia. Stop Diner. Young, dark hair, works nights." Declan's men watched him. No one spoke. Declan turned to Cole Bennett, who stood near the door in a charcoal jacket, arms folded, eyes alert. "Find her." Cole nodded once and left. Declan looked back at Markham. "You're going to give me every account Rusk moved through your companies." "I can't. He'll kill me." Declan's voice stayed soft. "I'm standing closer." Markham gave him everything. By the following evening, Declan had a photograph of Hannah Brooks from an old diner security camera. Grainy image, blue uniform, hair pinned up, eyes turned toward the door like she already expected the world to come through it with a weapon. June Mallory looked at the image over Declan's shoulder. "She looks tired." Declan did not answer. June knew better than most when silence meant grief had found a new shape. She know what she saw. Probably not. Rusk knows she saw it. Declan set the photo down. If he sent Doyle to ask, he suspects. If Doyle goes back, he knows. June crossed her arms. And if the girl lies well, Declan studied Hannah's blurred face. Then she lives a little longer. But long enough was not the same as safe. That night, Hannah packed a bag and unpacked it 3 times. She owned almost nothing, and somehow it was still too much. 2 shirts, jeans, socks, a photograph of no one she trusted herself to remember. The envelope from Walt. A chipped mug she had stolen from the diner because it fit her hand right. She sat on the edge of her mattress while her roommates argued in the kitchen about rent and a missing bottle of vodka. Running should have felt simple. It used to. But every road needed gas. Every room needed cash. Every new name needed time to become believable. And Walt would still be at the diner. Walt, who had stepped close enough to trouble to offer her money. If she vanished, men like Travis Doyle might ask him where she went. Hannah knew what men did when they did not like an answer, so she stayed. The decision felt stupid. It also felt like the only decent thing left in her. For 3 weeks, she lived with fear under her ribs. Every bell above the diner door made her pulse jump. Every dark car in the parking lot became the Cadillac. Every man who ordered black coffee made her hand drift toward the knife under the counter. Doyle did not return. That made the waiting worse. Some nights she caught Walt watching her. He stopped asking questions. He started walking her to her car after closing, pretending he needed to check the dumpster or lock the side gate. He kept a baseball bat near the kitchen door and told her it was for rats. The rats got names, she asked once. Some of them, he said. It almost made her smile. Almost. On the 21st night after the motel, the rain came back harder than before. It began at sunset, rolling in from the Gulf with low thunder and wind that pushed water under the diner door. By 11, the highway was nearly empty. The neon sign outside flickered like it was sending a warning nobody could read. Hannah stood behind the counter wiping coffee rings from formica that had been stained since before she was born. Walt was in the kitchen humming badly with the radio. A trucker slept in booth 3. Two men in work shirts played cards near the window. A woman in a damp business suit stared at her phone with one hand pressed to her forehead. Normal people. Normal night. Hannah almost believed it. Then headlights swept across the windows. Not one car. Two. Black sedans pulled into the lot and parked without hurry. Hannah's hand went still on the rag. The bell above the door rang. Travis Doyle walked in first. 3 men followed. Their jackets were dry despite the storm. Their eyes were not. The trucker looked up, saw their faces, and suddenly became very interested in leaving. The 2 card players went quiet. The woman in the suit gathered her purse with trembling fingers and moved toward the bathroom without looking back. Doyle smiled at Hannah like they were old friends. Evening. She felt the knife beneath the counter with her fingertips. Kitchen's closing. I'm not hungry. Then you should go. One of Doyle's men moved toward the door and turned the lock. Another drifted toward the hallway that led to the bathrooms. The third stood near the counter close enough that Hannah could smell rain and gun oil. Doyle removed his gloves slowly. I gave you a chance to be honest. Hannah kept her voice level. I gave you coffee. His smile vanished. 3 weeks ago. Blue Heron Motel, silver Cadillac, black briefcase. Walt pushed through the kitchen door. The bat was in his hand. Hannah Doyle did not look away from her. Old man should stay in the kitchen. Walt stepped closer. This is my place. Doyle nodded. Then you can watch what happens when people lie in it. Hannah pulled the knife from under the counter. The man nearest her caught her wrist before she could raise it. Pain shot up her arm. The knife clattered into the sink. Doyle leaned over the counter. Tell me what you saw. Hannah looked at Walt. At the bat in his shaking hands. At the rain streaking the glass. At the locked door. She thought of the blonde woman in the Cadillac, frightened and silent. She thought of pale eyes turning through the storm. She thought of all the girls nobody came for. Then she lifted her chin. I saw nothing. The first punch hit her ribs. Air left her body in a broken sound. Walt shouted and lunged. A second man struck him across the face with the butt of a gun. Walt fell hard. Hannah screamed his name. Doyle grabbed her jaw and forced her face back toward his. Clayton Rusk wants to know if you remember him. Blood filled her mouth. She swallowed it. Outside, beyond the rain and neon, another vehicle rolled into the lot with its lights off. Hannah did not see it. Doyle did not hear it. The bell above the diner door waited in the dark still as a held breath. The bell rang. Small sound. Bright sound. Wrong sound. Every man in the diner turned toward it. Hannah could barely lift her head, but through the blur of pain and rain she saw a man standing in the doorway, like the storm had delivered him on purpose. Black coat, dark hair wet at the temples, a face carved from patience and threat. He did not look surprised by the blood on the floor or Walt lying near the kitchen door. He looked like a man walking into a room he had already judged. Travis Doyle tightened his hand around Hannah's arm. Wrong night to get lost, friend. The man stepped inside. Rain dripped from the hem of his coat onto the tile. I'm not lost. His voice was low, almost gentle, and somehow every word landed harder than shouting. Doyle's men spread out. One reached inside his jacket. The stranger looked at him first. Don't. The man smiled and pulled anyway. The windows blew inward. Glass burst across tables and booths. Shadows moved through the rain fast and clean. One of Doyle's men dropped before he could raise his gun. Another spun toward the kitchen and slammed face first into the counter when a broad-shouldered man caught him from behind. The third fired once wild, the bullet punching into the coffee machine above Hannah's head. She flinched. The stranger did not. He crossed the diner in 4 steps. Doyle turned his gun toward him, but the stranger caught his wrist, twisted, and drove him down into the floor so hard the tile cracked beneath his shoulder. Doyle screamed. The gun slid under a booth. The whole room went quiet except for the rain, the hiss of the ruined coffee machine, and Walt's wet breathing. Hannah slipped from the man holding her and hit the floor on her knees. She tried to crawl to Walt. Her ribs punished her for it. A pair of polished shoes stopped in front of her. The stranger crouched, keeping distance between them, palms open where she could see them. Hannah Brooks. She stared at him through strands of wet hair and blood. "How do you know my name?" "Because men like Doyle don't cross state lines for strangers." I asked how. A faint pause. Later. She laughed once, but it broke into a cough. "Everybody says later when they want you quiet." His eyes moved to her mouth, her bruised jaw the way one arm hugged her side. "You need a doctor. I need Walt." The stranger glanced behind him. June. A woman came through the shattered window like she had done it 100 times. Late 50s, gray hair, cut short black medical bag in one hand, pistol in the other. She holstered the weapon and knelt beside Walt. "Pulse is weak," she said. "Head wound. Possible cardiac stress." Hannah tried to stand. Pain folded her in half. The stranger caught her before she hit the floor. His hand was firm at her elbow, not soft, not rough. Controlled. That made her hate it more. "Do not touch me." He let go at once. She had not expected that. Doyle groaned on the floor. The stranger looked down at him. "Who sent you?" Doyle bared bloody teeth. "Go to hell." The stranger's expression did not change. He knelt beside him and took Doyle's broken wrist in one hand. Hannah looked away before the sound came. Doyle screamed until the whole diner seemed to shake. "Clayton Rusk," he gasped. Trevor Pike gave the order. Said the waitress saw the exchange. Said she could put Rusk in the lot. The stranger released him. Doyle curled around his arm, sobbing through clenched teeth. The man stood and looked at Hannah again. "What exactly did you see?" Hannah tasted blood. Her mind dragged itself back to Rain Motel light silver paint pale eyes. A Cadillac. A briefcase. Money. A man with a limp. Rusk, if that's his name. And a blonde woman in the passenger seat smoking like she wanted the whole night to disappear. The woman with the medical bag looked up. The broad-shouldered man near the door went still. The stranger's face became colder. "What woman I don't know. Blonde, expensive, scared." Outside, sirens cried in the distance. The stranger looked toward the sound, then back at Hannah. "My name is Declan Ward." The name moved through the diner like another storm. Hannah knew it. Everyone who worked nights in New Orleans knew it. Men at the counter lowered their voices when they said it. Dock workers, truckers, gamblers, the kind of people who owed money and the kind who collected it. Declan Ward, a man people feared because he did not need to threaten them twice. Hannah forced herself upright, one hand on the counter. "You're worse than he is." Doyle laughed from the floor, breathless and broken. Declan looked at him. Doyle stopped. Then Declan turned back to Hannah. Maybe. At least he did not lie. June rose from beside Walt as EMT lights flashed across the broken windows. "He needs a hospital now." "Take him," Declan said. Hannah moved toward Walt, but Declan stepped near enough to stop her without touching her. "If you go with him, Rusk's people will find you before morning, and if I go with you, you live long enough to decide whether you hate me." Her eyes burned. She looked at Walt as the EMTs rushed inside and slid him onto a stretcher. His face was gray. Blood darkened his white hair near the temple. "He gets protection." "Yes." "Bills paid." "Yes." "If he wakes up and wants his diner fixed, you fix it." Declan held her stare. "Yes. And when this is over, I walk." Something passed through his eyes then. Not amusement, not pity, something sharper. "You walk." Hannah wanted to believe him because she had no better option. That was not the same as trust. She stepped out into the rain with him. A black SUV waited in the lot, engine running, windows dark. The storm soaked through her torn uniform before she reached the door. A man opened it from inside. Young, sharp-eyed hands steady on the wheel. Declan got in beside her. The door closed and the world became leather heat and the smell of gun oil. For a mile, neither of them spoke. Hannah watched the diner shrink behind them until the broken neon vanished in rain. Then she turned her head. Your men were already there. Declan did not pretend not to understand. Yes, you knew Doyle was coming. Yes, you waited until he hurt me. The driver's eyes flicked once to the mirror. Declan's jaw tightened. I waited until he gave me Rusk's name. Hannah stared at him. My ribs are cracked because you needed confirmation. Bruised, probably. The answer came too fast, too calm. Hannah's hand moved before she thought. She slapped him across the face. The sound filled the SUV. The driver did not react. Declan turned back slowly. A red mark rose along his cheek. He did not grab her wrist. He did not threaten her. He did not even look angry. You earned that, he said. The apology in his voice was quieter than the words. Hannah hated that too. Use me again and I'll make you bleed for it. His mouth almost moved. Noted. The SUV left the highway and turned onto a narrow road where cypress trees leaned over the pavement like old men with secrets. Rain slid down the windows in silver ropes. No streetlights, no signs. Just black water ditches on both sides, and the flash of headlights catching moss branches and the pale trunks of trees. Hannah forced herself to stay awake. Pain pulled at her. Exhaustion whispered. But sleep was surrender, and she did not surrender in cars with strange men. How far? 20 minutes. To where my home? You bring all your witnesses home. No. Lucky me, Declan looked at her then. You are many things tonight. Lucky is not one of them. The road curved through a gate set between brick pillars wrapped in ivy. 2 armed guards stepped from a booth. One checked the driver. Another walked around the SUV with a flashlight scanning the undercarriage, the tires, the trees beyond. The gate opened. The property beyond was not a house. It was a kingdom hiding in the swamp. A white stone estate rose at the end of a long drive, its columns bright under warm lights, balconies dark with rain, windows glowing gold against the night. Oak trees spread across the lawn, their limbs heavy with moss. The place looked too old, too rich, too still, as if it had been built by men who believed land could obey them. Hannah looked at Declan. This is where criminals live now. One of the places. How many do you have? Enough. That's supposed to impress me? No. He opened the door before the driver could. Cold rain rushed in. Hannah climbed out too fast and nearly collapsed. Her knees weakened. Her ribs flared white-hot. Declan reached for her, then stopped halfway. He remembered. That pause mattered more than she wanted it to. I can walk, she said. Then walk. June met them at the entrance with the medical bag already open in her hand. Inside, she said, looking Hannah over. You look like you fought a truck and lost. Hannah managed a thin smile. The truck had friends. June's eyes warmed for half a second. Most of them do. The foyer swallowed Hannah in marble and light. A chandelier hung above them like frozen rain. Paintings watched from the walls. The staircase curved upward with polished wood railings. Every corner smelled clean, expensive, untouched by hunger. Hannah's wet shoes squeaked on the floor. She suddenly felt the blood on her collar, the grease in her hair, the tear in her uniform. Declan noticed. Of course he noticed. He said nothing. June led her down a hall into a medical room that looked better equipped than any clinic Hannah had ever visited. Exam table, cabinets, monitor, Clean steel instruments under bright white light. Sit, June said. Hannah sat because standing was becoming a negotiation she was losing. June cleaned the cut above her eyebrow first. Antiseptic burned. Hannah did not flinch. You always this stubborn, June asked. Only when conscious. Good. Stubborn keeps people breathing. Declan stood near the door. Hannah looked at him through the mirror above the sink. You staying for the show? His eyes met hers. No. He turned to leave. Wait. He stopped. She hated herself for saying it, but the question was already out. Walt, I want updates. You'll have them. From who, me? No. From the hospital. Direct. I don't want your version. That faint, almost smile returned and disappeared. June will arrange it. Then he left. June taped gauze above Hannah's eye and checked her ribs with careful hands. Nothing broken that I can feel. Bruised deep. You'll hate breathing for a few days. Already started. Jaw sore. Headache. Yes. Nausea. Only when rich people talk. June pressed her lips together like she was fighting a smile. Painkillers. 2 now. More in 6 hours if needed. Don't mix with alcohol. Don't try to prove you're made of steel. You're not. Nobody is. Hannah took the pills and swallowed them with water from a glass so clear it looked fake. How long have you worked for him? 8 years. By choice, June met her eyes. Everything here is by choice unless Declan is being stupid. That happen often. Less than with most men. More than he thinks. Hannah looked toward the closed door. He used me. Yes. You knew I suspected. And you stayed June packed away bloodied gauze. I've stayed through worse for better reasons. That's supposed to make sense. Not tonight. June helped her stand and led her upstairs. The hallway was quiet, carpeted, lined with doors. At the third room on the right, she opened the door. The bedroom was larger than Hannah's whole apartment. 4-poster bed, fireplace, thick curtains, a sitting area near tall windows streaked with rain. Someone had placed clothes in the closet, jeans, sweaters, underthings with tags still attached. Hannah stood at the threshold. I'm not sleeping in here. June sighed. Fine. Sleep standing up in the hall. Hannah stepped inside. June pointed to the bathroom. Towels, shower. Lock works from the inside. Nobody comes in unless you open the door. Hannah looked at her. Does he know that June's expression softened? He knows. When June left, Hannah locked the door and tested it twice. Then she went into the bathroom and turned on the shower. Steam filled the marble room. She stripped off the uniform, slowly peeling fabric from bruises, from drying blood, from a life that had already been ruined before she understood when it happened. The water ran red at first, then pink, then clear. Hannah stood under it until her knees shook. She pressed both hands to the wall and breathed through pain, counting each inhale like rent paid in advance. When she finally crawled into bed, the sheets were too soft. The room was too quiet. The door was locked, but the house around it belonged to Declan Ward. Her last thought before sleep took her was not gratitude. It was a question. What did a cage become when the door locked from the inside? Morning came without sirens. That alone felt wrong. Hannah woke to pale sunlight behind cream curtains and a deep ache under every breath. For a few seconds, she did not know where she was. Then memory returned in pieces. Doyle's hand. Walt falling. Declan's voice. Rain on black glass. She sat up too fast and gasped. The clock on the nightstand read 9:41. Someone knocked. Hannah grabbed the lamp before she found her voice. Who is it, June? Hannah kept the lamp in her hand and unlocked the door. June stood outside with a tray of coffee, eggs, toast, and orange juice. You missed breakfast. I didn't know attendance was required. It isn't. Eating is. June set the tray on the table by the window. Hannah looked at the food. Real butter, fresh bread, eggs not fried in old grease. Her stomach twisted with hunger and suspicion. Did he send you? I sent myself. Declan has been in meetings since dawn. Crime meetings? Business meetings? With criminals. June gave her a dry look. In this state, that doesn't narrow it down. Hannah almost laughed. It hurt, so she stopped. After June left, she ate standing near the window, watching the grounds below. Guards moved along the tree line. 2 men checked a black SUV near the garage. Cameras nested under the eaves like insects. The estate was beautiful. It was also armed. Hannah showered again, dressed in jeans and a black sweater that fit too well, then left the room. No one stopped her. That made her more nervous. Downstairs, she found the library through open double doors. Books climbed every wall. Leather chairs sat near a fireplace big enough to hide in. The windows looked out over wet gardens where roses bent under rain. She pulled a book from a shelf at random. Not a novel. Financial records. Rows of names, numbers, companies' transfers. You won't find fairy tales in that section. Hannah spun. Declan stood in the doorway wearing a dark suit and white shirt open at the collar. The mark from her slap had faded, but not completely. She put the book back. You read these for fun, for survival. Most people use locks. Locks break. Information lasts. He entered slowly as if approaching a wounded animal that still had teeth. He gestured to the chairs. We need to talk. I thought I got time to hate you properly. You do. This is separate. She did not sit until he did. That seemed important. Declan rested his hands on his knees. Walt is stable. Head wound required stitches. Mild cardiac episode from stress, but he's awake. He asked if you were alive. Hannah looked down before relief could show too clearly. What did you tell him that you were safe? Her eyes lifted. Don't use that word around me. Declan accepted the hit without flinching. I told him you were breathing. That one's true. Yes. For a moment only, the rain spoke against the windows. Then Declan reached into his jacket and set a thin folder on the table between them. Hannah did not touch it. What is that, Clayton Rusk? Keep it. You need to know why he wants you dead. I know enough. I saw his money. You saw more than money. Declan opened the folder. Photographs, building permits, bank wires, shipping logs, faces with names underneath. Some alive, some crossed out in black ink. Rusk runs a laundering network through ports, construction firms, casinos, churches, charities, anything that gives dirty money a clean story. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, political money. He moves it, cleans it, and buys silence with what comes out the other side. Hannah stared at a photo of a young man in a suit smiling beside a woman and little girl. Who is that? Declan's hand stopped on the edge of the folder. My brother. Michael. The room changed. Nothing moved, but Hannah felt it. He worked for Rusk. He investigated him. Declan's voice stayed even. Too even. Michael found records connecting Rusk to 12 shell companies and 2 federal prosecutors. He called me the night before he died. Said he had the spine of it. Hannah looked at the photo again. What happened? 2 bullets behind a courthouse. Robbery, according to the report. Was it no? She studied Declan's face. There was no performance in his grief, no broken voice, no dramatic stare, just something buried so deep it had become part of his bones. You want revenge? I want Rusk stripped of money, friends' protection, reputation, and sleep. Then I want him in a room with nothing left to bargain with. That's a long way of saying revenge. Revenge is fast. His eyes found hers. I've had 3 years to become patient. Hannah leaned back, ribs aching. And I'm your missing piece. Yes. At least you admit it. I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. That's supposed to make you decent, no. He closed the folder halfway. But your memory can put Rusk at a physical cash exchange. Date, time, vehicle, courier, briefcase, the woman in the passenger seat. That kind of witness scares men like him because it turns smoke into a body. Hannah looked toward the garden. What if I refuse? Then I give you money identification and a route out of Louisiana. She turned back fast. And let me walk. Yes. You expect me to believe that no. I expect you to test it. The answer unsettled her. Where's the nearest gate south drive? Half a mile. And if I walk to it, no one touches you. Rusk's people. They will touch you if they find you. That's not freedom. No, that's the world. Hannah stood because sitting made her feel too much like she was being interviewed. I need air. East doors lead to the garden. You sending guards? They are already there. Her laugh was sharp. There it is. Declan stood too. They will keep distance. How generous. She walked past him. At the doorway, he spoke. Hannah. She stopped, but did not look back. I am sorry I waited in the diner. For once, she heard no strategy in his voice. Only the thing itself. Her hand tightened on the door frame. Then don't make me sorry you came in at all. She left him there. The garden smelled of wet roses, mud, and cut grass. Hannah walked until the house was behind her and the tree line came closer. Somewhere to her left, a guard shifted. She did not see him, but she felt him. Always watched, always protected, always contained. She wrapped her arms around herself and kept walking. Near a stone fountain, she found a bench slick with rain and sat anyway. The cold soaked through the expensive jeans. Good. It gave her something real to feel. After a while, footsteps approached. Not Declan. Cole Bennett stopped several feet away, hands visible. Broad shoulders, shaved head, calm eyes that had seen combat and kept score. June says you shouldn't be out in the cold. June talks too much. She does. You here to drag me back? No. Then why are you here? Cole looked toward the trees. Because if I stand far enough away, Declan can say you have privacy, and if I stand close enough, I can stop somebody from shooting you. Hannah glanced at him despite herself. That line work on everyone, no? Most people just yell. I'm considering it. Fair. He turned to leave, but she stopped him. Can this place really keep Rusk out? Cole looked back. For a while. That's not yes. It's the honest version. Hannah nodded slowly. I want to learn to shoot. Cole studied her. Why? Because the next man who grabs me shouldn't get to finish his sentence. He looked toward the house, then back at her. You ever fired a gun? No. Scared of them? Yes. Good. People who aren't scared of guns are usually idiots. For the first time that day, Hannah almost smiled and did not regret it. Behind them, the estate stood bright and silent under the gray Louisiana sky. Inside that house, Declan Ward waited with his files, his grief, his enemies, and his promises. Outside it, the world still belonged to Clayton Rusk. Hannah rose from the bench, wet and aching, but steady. Then teach me. Cole nodded once. As they walked back toward the house, Declan appeared at an upstairs window. He did not wave. He did not call down. He only watched Hannah cross the garden under guard. Her chin high, her bruised face turned toward the rain like she had no intention of bowing to it. For a moment, something in his expression softened. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen. Cole saw the change from the garden below. Hannah saw it too. Declan answered. His face went still. By the time Hannah reached the steps, he was already moving away from the window, and every guard on the estate seemed to straighten at once. Declan's voice dropped so low Hannah could no longer hear the words, only the shape of them. Cole felt it first. The guards at the garden edge stiffened. A man near the east gate touched the radio at his shoulder. Another turned toward the trees, scanning shadows that had not moved a second ago. The estate did not panic. It adjusted like a living thing that had heard a predator in the brush. Hannah stopped on the wet stone steps. What happened? Cole did not answer right away. That was answer enough. Declan came out through the front doors a minute later with his coat already in his hand. The softness Hannah had seen in the upstairs window was gone. His face belonged to the man from the diner again. Controlled, cold, built for damage. "Trevor Pike is gone," he said. Hannah frowned. "The fixer." "Yes." Gone where Declan looked at Cole. "Checked out of his hotel under an alias at 6 this morning. 2 guards left behind. Both dead." Hannah felt the rain cooling on her neck. Rusk killed his own man. Rusk kills every loose thread once it starts to fray. The phrase made her think of the motel lot. The man with the limp. The blonde woman smoking in the passenger seat, her own eyes meeting pale ones across the rain. How much time do I have? Declan's gaze moved back to her. Less than yesterday. Inside the estate, the warm light felt too bright. Hannah followed Declan and Cole into a room off the main hall where screens covered one wall. Security feeds showed every gate drive, garden path, garage door, and strip of wet forest. Men moved in pairs. Vehicles shifted position. The house that had seemed like a mansion an hour ago had become a fortress with curtains. A young man at a console handed Cole a tablet. Cole scanned it, jaw tightening. South access is clear. North tree line has motion from deer, nothing human. East road closed at the parish line from flooding. Declan nodded. Double patrols until morning. Cole looked at him. Already done. Hannah stood near the door, arms folded against the ache in her ribs. You two always talk like I'm furniture. Declan turned. No. Then stop doing it. Cole looked down at the tablet, wisely silent. Declan came closer, stopping far enough away that she could not accuse him of crowding her. Pike disappearing means Rusk knows the diner failed. It also means he is cutting off anyone who can connect him to you. And what am I supposed to do with that? Remember everything? Her laugh came out thin. I remember being beaten while you waited outside. Declan took the hit. His eyes did not leave hers. I know. No, you don't. You know strategy. You know files. You know how to look at people and decide where they fit on a board. I'm not a board. No, I'm not a witness statement either. No. Then say what I am. The room went still. Cole stopped pretending to read. Declan's voice changed just slightly. You are a woman Rusk tried to erase. Hannah stared at him. That's all no, but it's the part I can keep alive right now. She wanted to hate that answer. It was too honest to be clean and too cold to be kind. A phone rang on the console. Cole answered, listened, then looked at Declan. Federal raids started 20 minutes ago. 3 companies tied to Rusk. Port storage concrete supplier private logistics firm. Accounts frozen. Warrants are real. Hannah's eyes snapped to Declan. You did that. Declan did not deny it. I sent records to a prosecutor I trust. When before dawn. Her hands curled. You used me again. I used the information around you. That is a coward's sentence. Cole looked away. Declan's face tightened for the first time. If I waited for your testimony, Rusk would have more time to disappear. So you made him desperate while I'm sitting in your house. I made him visible. You made me bait. The words landed harder because no one in the room argued. Hannah walked out before her voice could break. She made it halfway up the stairs before Declan caught up. He did not grab her. He stayed 2 steps below, forcing himself to look up at her. Hannah, do not. He was always coming. She turned on him. But you chose when. You chose how. You chose without asking me. His jaw flexed. Yes. The answer robbed her of momentum. She had expected defense. Men like him always had defense ready. She swallowed. Do you even know how to ask? Declan looked at her for a long time. I used to. That was not enough. She left him on the stairs. By sunset, the estate had changed again. Dinner was delivered to Hannah's room by June, who came in without softness and left the tray near the window. You need to eat. I need people to stop telling me what I need. June stood with one hand on the chair. Fair. Hannah expected her to leave. Instead, June sat down. You can be angry at him and still eat. I can be angry at him and starve too. You can, but your ribs will heal slower, and then I'll have to listen to you complain longer. Hannah looked at her despite herself. Is this your bedside manner? It is my charming version. The smallest smile tried to rise. Hannah killed it and looked out at the dark grounds. Does he do this to everyone? Make decisions like God with better shoes? Hannah turned. June shrugged. Yes. Why do you stay? Because sometimes his decisions keep children alive, get women out of houses where men break their bones, pay for medicine, bury monsters who would have walked free. That's supposed to balance it, no? June's voice softened. It explains why people let themselves forget the danger of a man who can do good and harm with the same hand. Hannah looked down at her bruised knuckles. I don't want to forget. Then don't. A knock came before Hannah could answer. Cole opened the door just enough to be seen. We found Dale Morgan. Hannah looked at him, who the man with the limp from the motel. Declan was waiting in the library when they came down. The folder on the table was open beside a photograph. Hannah recognized the brown leather jacket before she recognized the face. Dale Morgan looked smaller in death. His car had gone through a guardrail outside Lafayette. Police report said accident. Cole said the brake line had been cut clean. Hannah sat slowly. He was alive yesterday. Yes, Declan said, and now he's dead because of what I saw. No, he's dead because Rusk is afraid of what you saw. That difference only matters to you. Declan looked at her across the table. It matters to the case. She hated him for saying case when a man with a limp and a scared face was lying in a morgue. Did he have family? Cole answered. Ex-wife in Texas, one son, no contact for years. Hannah stared at the photograph. People become files fast around you. Declan closed the folder. Files are how I keep them from becoming forgotten. Something in his voice made the room colder. Hannah did not ask about Michael again. At 2:47 in the morning, the alarms began, not loud at first. A pulse of red light under Hannah's bedroom door. Then footsteps in the hall. Fast, controlled. The estate waking without screaming. Hannah sat upright, already reaching for the lamp before remembering Cole had not cleared her to keep a loaded gun. The Glock lay in the nightstand drawer with the magazine separate. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Empty wait. Still wait. A knock came. Hannah. It's June. Hannah opened the door with the unloaded gun in her hand. June looked at it. Useful as a paperweight right now. Then give me bullets. Get dressed. The hallway was full of men moving with weapons low and eyes high. Cole came around the corner in tactical gear. Perimeter breach. 3 men inside the north fence. Hannah's stomach dropped. Rusk unknown. Where's Declan Cole's face closed? Handling it. That phrase had too much blood in it. June pushed clothes into Hannah's arms. Boots, jacket, move. They went down a back staircase Hannah had not seen before. The walls were plain here. No paintings, no marble, just narrow corridors and emergency lights. The beautiful house stripped down to bone. In the garage, Luis waited behind the wheel of an armored SUV. His dark eyes met Hannah's in the mirror. Morning, he said. This your normal morning. Depends who is trying to kill us. June climbed in beside Hannah with a rifle across her lap. Cole took the front passenger seat. 2 more SUVs rolled out ahead and behind them as the garage door rose into black rain. Hannah looked back through the rear window. The estate blazed with light. Guards moved across the lawn. Somewhere near the trees she heard gunfire. 1 shot, then another, then silence. Her breath caught. Cole spoke into his radio. Package moving. West route. Hannah looked at him. Do not call me package. Cole glanced back. Sorry. She almost believed him. The convoy drove without headlights for the first mile, guided by night vision cameras and road markers Hannah could not see. The forest closed around them. Branches scratched the roof. Rain hammered the glass. Luis drove like the road belonged to his hands more than the tires. Where are we going? Hannah asked. Bunker Cole said. You have a bunker. Declan has a lot of enemies. That answer is starting to explain too much. The bunker sat 20 miles west, buried into a low hill behind an abandoned sugar mill. From outside, it looked like concrete and rust. Inside, after Cole punched in 2 codes and gave a fingerprint scan, it opened into a clean underground space with steel doors, cots, a kitchen, monitors, weapons lockers, and no windows. No windows mattered. Hannah noticed that first. The door sealed behind them with a heavy hydraulic sigh. It sounded like a tomb agreeing to keep a secret. June set her medical bag down. Sit before you fall. I'm fine. You're gray. Maybe I'm matching the decor. Cole and Luis checked the monitors. The 2 guards took positions near the entrance. Hannah walked back to the door and looked at the keypad. Does it open from this side? Cole did not answer fast enough. Her skin went cold. Cole, it opens with a code. Do I have the code? No. She turned slowly. June saw her face. Hannah. No. Cole stepped closer. Palms open. This is protocol. No. You're safer inside. Her voice went quiet. That is what people say right before they lock the door. No one had an answer that would not make it worse. Hours passed in concrete light. Hannah sat on a cot and listened to ventilation hum in the ceiling. June cleaned a cut on Cole's arm. Luis made coffee no one drank. The guards kept their eyes on the monitors. At dawn, the door opened. Declan stepped inside with blood on his shirt cuff and mud on his coat. He looked as if the night had carved new lines around his mouth. Cole stood. Status. Declan dropped 3 identification wallets onto the table. Federal credentials, real ones. The room went silent. Hannah moved closer, slow. Those are fake. Declan's eyes found hers. No. June picked one up, read it, and swore under her breath. Cole shook his head. Federal agents do not breach private property to execute a witness. These did. Hannah felt the bunker tilt around her. Why would federal agents want me dead? Declan looked at the IDs as if staring hard enough could change them. Because Rusk has someone inside the prosecutor's office, someone high enough to know about the raids, high enough to redirect assets, high enough to make murder look like an operation. The words did not feel real. Then they did, and real was worse. Hannah backed away from the table. So the police were never safe. The prosecutors are not safe. The witnesses are not safe. No. What about your prosecutor? Declan's silence answered. Hannah laughed once, sharp and empty. You do not trust him anymore. I trust no one connected to the investigation until I know who leaked. And my testimony? Declan looked at her. If you testify now, you die before you reach a courthouse. All the fear she had been holding turned hot. So what was the point? The diner, The estate, the files, the gun range, all of it. You said my memory mattered. It does. For what? If I can't say it anywhere that counts. Declan's voice flattened. We find another way. She looked at his hands, the blood under his nails, his stillness. No. He did not speak. No, Declan. Hannah. You're going to kill him. If the system is compromised, the system cannot finish this. That is not an answer. It is the only one that still keeps you breathing. She turned toward June. Tell him he sounds insane. June looked away. June. The older woman's face was tired. If Rusk owns the people meant to protect you, Court becomes a trap. Hannah looked at Cole. He did not soften it. She's right. The bunker seemed to shrink. Hannah walked to the door and pressed the keypad. Nothing. She pressed again. Nothing. Open it. Declan did not move. Hannah, you cannot leave. The sentence hit something old in her. A locked bedroom, a foster father's voice through wood, a social worker saying it was for her own safety, a boss standing too close near the storage room door. She turned around with the unloaded gun in her hand and pointed it at the floor, because even rage remembered training. Open the door. Declan's eyes dropped to the gun, then came back to her face. No. You said I was not a prisoner. You are not. Then open the door. I will not let you walk out into a death sentence. You do not get to let me do anything. His face hardened. I do when you are not thinking clearly. The words cut too deep. Hannah grabbed the nearest chair and threw it against the wall. It cracked apart, metal legs screaming across concrete. Everyone moved. Cole's hand went to his weapon. June snapped his name. Declan did not move at all. Hannah's voice came out raw. Every man who ever locked me in a room said I was not thinking clearly. Declan went still in a different way. She pointed toward the sealed door. They said it was protection. They said I was dramatic. They said I would thank them later. Do you hear yourself? His expression changed, not enough for most people to see, but she saw it because she was watching for the monster. I am not them. Then prove it. The bunker held its breath. Declan looked at the door, then at Cole, then back at Hannah. I can't. The answer broke something between them. Hannah lowered the gun. Then, stop dressing control up as protection. It makes the cage smell worse. For a long moment, no one spoke. Declan's voice was rough when it came. You're right. She did not expect it. Neither did anyone else. I used you, he said. From the moment I found out there was a waitress at Magnolia Stop, I saw a way to reach Rusk. I let Doyle talk too long because I wanted a name. I moved evidence because I wanted Rusk desperate. I kept telling myself every choice was justified because you were still alive. Hannah's eyes burned, but she refused the tears. And now? Now I still want Rusk destroyed. There it was, honest and ugly. Declan took one step closer, then stopped himself. But somewhere in the middle of it, you stopped being a way to hurt him. His voice dropped. You became Hannah. That hurt more than it helped. Pretty words, she said. Her voice shook. Locked door. Declan closed his eyes for one breath. When he opened them, the old control was back, but thinner now, cracked at the edge. I will open it when I can keep you alive on the other side. That is still you deciding. Yes. Hannah looked at him like she was seeing every weapon he carried, even the ones inside his good intentions. Then we are not done with this. No, he said quietly. We are not. Luis cleared his throat from the monitors. Boss, Everyone turned. He pointed at the screen where a paused image from the motel feed filled the display. Declan's team had pulled old footage from a traffic camera near the Blue Heron. Grainy rain streaked almost useless. Almost. The silver Cadillac sat under the broken light. Rusk stood near the trunk. Dale Morgan carried the briefcase. And in the passenger seat, the blonde woman turned her face just enough for the camera to catch her profile. Hannah stepped closer. That's her. Cole leaned over Luis's shoulder. Run it through the federal contact list. Luis typed quickly. Faces flickered, names appeared and vanished. Then one image locked into place. Professional headshot. Blonde hair. Blue suit. Calm smile. Allison Price. Assistant United States Attorney. Declan read the name once. His face emptied. Cole's voice was low. She was on the raid authorization chain. June whispered, God. Hannah stared at the woman from the Cadillac. The diamond earrings were gone in the headshot, but the eyes were the same. Beautiful. Afraid. Trapped or guilty, maybe both. Declan picked up the printed photo and held it under the bunker light. She's the leak. Hannah looked from the photo to the locked door, then back to Declan, and she was sitting beside Rusk before any of this started. Declan's hand closed slowly around the edge of the paper. The room changed again, but this time Hannah felt herself changing with it. She was still bruised, still furious, still locked underground with people who thought survival gave them permission to decide for her. But now the woman in the Cadillac had a name, and names could be found. Declan did not move for a long time. The photo of Allison Price bent in his fist, but his eyes stayed on her face. Not the polished headshot from the federal website, the grainy traffic camera image from the motel lot. The woman in the passenger seat, cigarette burning between two fingers, watching Clayton Rusk take a briefcase full of dirty money while rain washed the world around them, clean enough for lies. Hannah stood beside the monitor, arms wrapped around herself. She looked scared, she said. Cole glanced at her. Scared people still pull triggers. I know. Declan laid the photo flat on the table and smoothed the crease with 2 fingers. Allison Price has access to witness lists, raid schedules, sealed warrants, transport orders, and protective custody routes. June's face hardened. Then any legal move runs through her before it reaches the courthouse. Yes. Cole leaned over the table. We take her quietly. Declan looked at him. Tonight. Hannah's pulse picked up. What does quietly mean in this room? Cole answered, not Declan. It means she breathes when we are done. That is not as comforting as you think it is. Declan's eyes lifted to hers. You do not have to be there. Hannah laughed, once dry and humorless. You still think this is about where I stand in the room. It is about keeping you alive. No. It is about whether I get to be part of the story everyone keeps writing around me. June looked down at the table. Cole said nothing. Declan's jaw tightened. Hannah, you need me to identify her. We have the image. You need me because I saw her afraid. Not just present. Afraid. That matters. Declan studied her, and she hated that some part of her still wanted him to see her clearly. I am not asking to hold a gun to her head, Hannah said. I am asking not to be locked away while all of you decide what my life means. The bunker lights hummed overhead. Luis sat at the monitor station quiet as ever, his hands folded near the keyboard. The 2 guards by the door kept their eyes forward, pretending they were not listening. Declan looked at Cole. Cole shook his head once. Bad idea. Declan looked back at Hannah. You stay behind glass. You speak only when I ask you to. If anything shifts, Luis moves you before you understand why. Hannah looked at Luis. He gave her a small nod. I drive fast, he said. I noticed. Declan's voice cut through the room. And if I say, leave, you leave. She held his gaze. If I agree, you open the bunker door. Yes. Now. For a second, nobody breathed. Declan entered the code himself. The lock released with a heavy click. The sound went through Hannah's body like warmth after frostbite. The door opened. No one moved to stop her. She stood there looking at the strip of gray morning beyond the steel frame, at damp trees and pale sky and freedom that smelled like mud and danger. Then she turned back. Now we can talk. Something unreadable crossed Declan's face. Cole muttered under his breath. June almost smiled. By late afternoon, Allison Price left the federal building in downtown New Orleans, wearing a cream coat, black heels, and the kind of expression powerful people wore when they believed the city would keep making room for them. She walked alone into the parking garage. That was her mistake. The garage lights buzzed overhead. Her heels clicked across concrete. She reached into her purse for her keys, eyes on her phone mouth tight as she read a message she did not like. A black van sat 2 spaces from her government sedan. Allison saw it too late. Cole stepped from behind a pillar. June came from the stairwell. Luis blocked the exit ramp with another vehicle. Declan appeared in front of Allison's car, hands in his coat pockets, calm enough to be mistaken for unarmed. Allison froze. Then her face changed. She knew him. Of course she did. Mr. Ward, she said. Declan stopped 3 feet away. Ms. Price, this is a federal facility. No, this is a parking garage near one. I can have you arrested. You could try. Her hand slipped toward her purse. June's voice came from behind her. Do not do that, sweetheart. Allison closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, the fear was gone. Not because she was brave, because she had decided which mask to wear. You have no idea what you are stepping into. Declan's voice stayed soft. I have been standing in it for 3 years. Cole took her purse. June checked her for weapons. Luis opened the van door. Allison looked at Declan. Clayton will burn this city to find me. Declan leaned closer. Good. They brought her to an abandoned shipping warehouse near the port of New Orleans, far from tourist lights and jazz spilling through French Quarter streets. This part of the city belonged to Crane's containers, wet rope diesel fumes, and river fog. The Mississippi moved black and wide beyond the docks, carrying old secrets toward the Gulf. The warehouse had once stored machine parts. Now it stored dust-rusted chains, broken pallets, and one office built above the loading floor with dirty windows looking down on the open space. Hannah watched from inside an armored SUV parked in the shadow of stacked containers. The glass was thick. The doors were locked, but this time Luis sat beside her and the lock could open from inside. That mattered. Cole stood outside near the hood rifle, held low eyes, moving constantly. June sat in the back seat with a medical bag and a pistol in her lap. Hannah looked at the warehouse office through a small monitor connected to Cole's body camera feed. Allison Price sat in a chair with her wrists bound in front of her. Not cruelly, securely. Her cream coat was gone. Her blouse was wrinkled. One strand of blonde hair had fallen loose near her cheek. Declan stood across from her. He did not pace. Men like Declan did not waste motion unless violence required it. Allison looked up at him. You cannot keep me here. I do not plan to. Then what do you want? Declan placed a photograph on the desk between them. The traffic camera image from Blue Heron Motel. Allison's eyes flicked to it and away too quickly. Declan set down another photo. A clearer one pulled from federal employee records. Then another. Phone metadata. Raid authorization chain. Internal memo access logs. A protected witness transport order with her credentials attached. Allison's mouth tightened. You have stolen federal documents. You have buried federal witnesses. I did not kill anyone. Declan leaned both hands on the desk. 3 men wearing badges crossed my perimeter last night to execute Hannah Brooks. Allison's face changed at Hannah's name. There it was. Not guilt alone. Recognition. Fear. On the monitor, Hannah leaned closer. June noticed. Breathe. I am better. Hannah forced air into her lungs. In the office, Allison looked toward the dark window, though she could not see the SUV beyond the warehouse lights. She is alive. Declan watched her carefully. That disappoints you. No. The answer came fast, raw, too human. Allison swallowed. No, it does not. Declan pulled out the chair across from her and sat. Then start talking. Allison laughed, but it broke before it finished. You think I am the monster. I think you helped one. Her eyes flashed. You have no idea what Clayton is. I know exactly what he is. No. You know what he does. That is not the same. For the first time, Declan said nothing. Allison looked down at her bound hands. Her nails were pale pink. Perfect. One was cracked near the thumb. I met him before I knew his name meant anything. He was charming. Brilliant. He listened like every word out of my mouth was worth keeping. I was 32 and tired of men who talked over me in rooms I had worked twice as hard to enter. She smiled small and dead. He made me feel chosen. Hannah watched her through the grainy feed and felt something twist in her stomach. June's voice was low. That is how men like him open the door. Allison continued. By the time I understood, he already knew everything. My father's gambling debts. My brother's drug charges that disappeared. The judge I bribed with a favor before I knew favors had chains. Clayton never asked for loyalty. He collected leverage until loyalty was all I had left to call it. Declan's face did not soften. How long have you been feeding him federal information? Allison closed her eyes. 6 years. Cole swore quietly outside the SUV. Declan's voice became colder. Names? No. He waited. Allison opened her eyes. You still do not understand. I give you names and every one of them scatters. Clayton has contingencies on contingencies. He will know I talked before your people finish writing it down. Then we do not write it down. Declan took a phone from his pocket and set it on the desk. You call him. Allison stared at it. No. Yes. If I call him, he comes with soldiers. That is the point. Her face drained. You want him here? Declan's silence answered. Allison looked at the dark window again. And the girl? Declan's jaw moved once. She stays protected. Allison laughed bitterly. You still believe there is such a thing? Hannah sat back against the SUV seat. The Glock rested heavy at her side. Cole had cleared it that morning with a look that said he regretted every choice leading to it. 6 rounds. Loaded. Safety drilled into her until her ears rang. Never point unless you mean it. Never put your finger on the trigger until ready. Never assume the world gives you time. In the office, Allison stared at the phone. Declan leaned forward. You help us bring him in, and you live long enough to testify. You cannot promise that. No. The honesty seemed to hurt her more than a lie. All I can promise is that if you do nothing, Clayton Rusk will decide you are a loose end by sunrise. Allison's mouth trembled once. Then she picked up the phone. Declan dialed from memory. The line rang 3 times. A man answered. Smooth voice, southern edge, expensive calm. Allison. Her face cracked when she heard him. Clayton, where are you? She looked at Declan. Declan nodded. I need you to listen to me. A pause. You sound upset. I have been taken. Another pause. Longer. By whom Declan took the phone from her hand. Evening, Clayton. Silence filled the warehouse office. Then Rusk laughed softly. Declan Ward. I wondered when grief would finally make you sloppy. Declan's eyes did not move. You always did mistake patience for fear, and you always did mistake violence for discipline. Outside, the wind pushed fog between the containers. Hannah's fingers curled around the edge of her seat. Rusk's voice came through the phone speaker, calm and intimate. Is my wife alive? Hannah turned sharply toward June. Wife June's face hardened. Declan did not look surprised. Yes, he said. Then we can speak like gentlemen. You stopped being a gentleman when you sent federal agents to kill a waitress. Rusk sighed. Witnesses are such emotional investments. They disappoint everyone eventually. Hannah's throat tightened. Declan looked toward the dark window as if he could see her through it. She is alive, too. The line went quiet. This silence was different, not thoughtful, wounded. Then Rusk said, Put her on. Declan's answer came fast. No. Hannah reached for the SUV door handle. June caught her wrist. No. Hannah looked at her. I am not hiding from his voice. June did not let go. Declan spoke into the phone. You want your wife, your files, and the last living witness who can put you at Blue Heron come to the port. Pier 17. 1 hour. Rusk laughed again, but there was no pleasure in it now. You think I walk into traps? I think you cannot stand knowing a diner girl is breathing because you failed. That hit. Hannah felt it even through the monitor. Rusk's voice dropped. 1 hour. The line went dead. Allison lowered her head. He will come. Declan picked up the phone. I know. No, she whispered. You do not. You think he is coming to negotiate or kill you or take me back. Her eyes lifted. He is coming to erase the room. Cole moved fast after that. Men took positions along catwalks behind containers near the loading bay. Lights were killed in sections until the warehouse became a maze of shadow and hard yellow pools. Luis turned the SUV around, nose facing the exit route. June checked Hannah's pulse, then pretended she had done it for medical reasons and not fear. Hannah let her. Cole crouched by the open SUV door. Listen carefully. When Declan gives the signal, Luis pulls forward into the light. You step out. 3 seconds. No speech. No hero moment. Rusk sees you, understands the game has changed, and you get back in. Hannah looked past him to the warehouse. And if he shoots, this glass holds. And if it does not, then I make sure nothing reaches you twice. She studied his face. You always that reassuring? No. Good. I was worried this was your best. Cole almost smiled. Then his face went serious again. Hannah, you use the gun only if the vehicle is breached, not because you are angry, not because Declan is in trouble, not because you want to prove something. She looked away. Cole's voice sharpened. Say it. Her eyes came back to his. If the vehicle is breached. He nodded. Good. Luis looked at her from the driver's seat. I mean no offense, but please do not shoot inside my car unless absolutely necessary. Hannah stared at him. June snorted from the back seat. For one strange second in the middle of weapons and fog and waiting death, Hannah almost laughed. Then headlights appeared at the far end of the dock road. 1 pair, then 3, then 6. Black vehicles rolled through the port gate in a slow line. No sirens, no rushing. Rusk came like a man arriving at a dinner reservation he had made under another man's name. The first 2 vehicles stopped near the entrance. Men stepped out with rifles. Cole's voice came through the comms. Contact front. 8 visible. Declan stood in the center of the warehouse floor beneath a broken overhead light. His coat was gone. White shirt, dark vest. Gun hidden but not far. He looked almost formal, like violence deserved manners. Rusk entered alone at first. Tall, pale eyes, gray coat, silver hair at the temples. The same man from the motel, only closer now. He carried himself with the cruel ease of someone who believed fear was a natural law, and he had written it. He looked at Declan. Then toward the office where Allison sat guarded behind glass. "My wife looks tired." Declan's voice was flat. "She has had a difficult day. That happens when women forget where they are safest." Hannah felt June go still behind her. Rusk walked farther into the warehouse. "You could have called Declan. Saved all this theater. I wanted you to see the stage." Rusk smiled. "You still think this is about revenge for Michael?" Declan did not move. Rusk stepped closer. "Your brother was not special. He was a clerk with courage, and courage is just stupidity with better lighting." The comms stayed silent, but Hannah felt the words cut through every person listening. Declan's hand twitched once. Only once. Then he gave the signal. Louise started the SUV. Headlights sliced through the fog. The armored vehicle rolled from behind the containers and stopped at the edge of the light. Cole opened Hannah's door. Her legs felt distant when her boots hit wet concrete. 3 seconds. That was all. She stepped into the open. Rusk turned. For the first time since she had seen him at the motel, his face lost its shape. Not much. Not enough for a weaker man to notice. But Hannah saw it. The shock. The rage. The insult of her survival. She stood in the port fog with bruises fading on her jaw and a loaded gun under her jacket, and she let him look. Rusk's eyes narrowed. "You." Hannah said nothing. She did not need to. Her breathing was the answer. Cole touched her arm. "Back in." She stepped back. That was when Allison moved. On the office monitor, Hannah saw her twist sharply in the chair. The broken nail, the cracked thumb, a thin blade sliding from the lining of her sleeve. She was not cutting herself free. She was cutting the guard nearest her. The man shouted. Gunfire erupted from the office. Rusk smiled. He had known. The warehouse exploded. Glass shattered above the loading floor. Men behind containers opened fire. Declan dove behind a concrete pillar as bullets tore sparks from steel beams. Cole shoved Hannah into the SUV so hard she hit the opposite door. Luis slammed it into reverse. A truck roared from the side alley and struck the rear quarter panel. The impact threw Hannah against the seat. June cursed. Luis fought the wheel. The SUV spun but did not flip. Cole fired through the open doorway before diving in after her. "Move!" he shouted. Luis punched the gas. Another vehicle blocked the exit. A masked man jumped onto the side step and grabbed the rear door handle. The lock groaned. Hannah saw his eyes through the cracked glass. Close. Too close. June raised her pistol, but the angle was wrong. The man fired into the window. The glass spiderwebbed. Hannah's body went very quiet. Training came back in broken pieces. Grip. Breathe. Front sight. Do not close your eyes. She drew the Glock. Cole shouted her name. The masked man fired again. The window cracked deeper. Hannah aimed through the ruined glass and pulled the trigger. The sound was enormous inside the SUV. The man jerked back but did not fall. She fired again. This time he dropped from the side step and vanished under the wheel line. Hannah stared at the space where his face had been. Her ears rang. Her hands shook so hard the gun trembled. June took her wrist gently and pushed the barrel down. "Breathe." Hannah sucked in air. It tasted like smoke. "Did I kill him?" June looked through the glass. "Yes." The word entered Hannah and found nowhere to sit. Luis rammed the blocking car with the SUV's front bumper. Metal screamed. Cole fired through the windshield gap. The other vehicle shifted just enough for Luis to force through. Inside the warehouse, Declan was moving toward Rusk. Hannah saw him through smoke and flashing gunfire. He fought like a man who had removed everything unnecessary from violence. No rage wasted, no fear visible. He crossed the floor one fallen body at a time. Rusk retreated toward the loading bay with 2 men around him. Declan shot one. Cole shot the other from the SUV window. Rusk drew a gun and aimed at Declan's back. Hannah saw it before anyone else. Maybe because she had spent 3 weeks seeing that man in her nightmares. Maybe because survival had taught her to notice the hand before the hit. Cole was reloading. June was yelling. Luis was turning the SUV. Hannah opened the door. Cole grabbed for her jacket and missed. "Hannah, no!" She hit the ground running. Pain tore through her ribs, but she kept moving. Rain mist and smoke wrapped around her. Her boots slipped on oil-slick concrete. Rusk's arm lifted. Declan was turning too slowly. Hannah planted her feet with both hands on the gun. The first shot missed. The second hit Rusk in the shoulder. His gun fired wild into the roof. Declan spun, saw Hannah, then Rusk, then the blood spreading across Rusk's coat. For one burning second, fury crossed Declan's face. Not at Rusk, at her. Then Rusk lunged for the fallen weapon. Declan reached him first. He kicked the gun away, drove Rusk to his knees and struck him across the face with the butt of his pistol. Rusk hit the concrete on one hand, coughing blood, but he laughed. Even then, even beaten, he laughed. The gunfire around them faded in uneven bursts as Declan's men secured the floor. Allison was dragged from the office by June and one of Cole's guards, bleeding from her forehead, alive and shaking. Rusk looked at Hannah. Blood colored his teeth. "You should have stayed invisible." Hannah's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I tried." Declan stood over Rusk with his gun pointed at the center of his face. All the noise seemed to move away. The river, the sirens in the distance, Cole shouting orders, Allison crying somewhere behind them. It all became smaller than Declan's finger on the trigger. Rusk lifted his chin. "There he is," he whispered. "Michael's angry brother. Dress him up, give him manners, put him in a mansion. Still just a killer waiting for permission." Declan's eyes went black. "You do not get to say his name." "I already did." Declan stepped closer. Rusk smiled wider. "Do it. Put me down in the dark like the animal you are. Save the taxpayers a trial. Save the girl a courtroom." Hannah looked at Declan's hand. So steady. Too steady. She understood then. Rusk wanted the bullet. A dead man could become a legend. A murdered kingpin could become a story told by loyal men in locked rooms. He could die believing he had pulled Declan down to his level and taken the truth with him. Hannah stepped closer. Cole called her name, but she ignored him. Declan did not look away from Rusk. Hannah moved back. "No, this is not your choice." Her laugh was soft and broken. "That sounds familiar." His face shifted. "Just enough." She stood beside him, close enough to smell smoke on his shirt and blood in the air between them. "If you kill him now, he gets exactly what he wants." Declan's voice was rough. "He deserves worse than death. Then give him worse." Rusk's eyes flicked between them. Hannah looked down at him. "Make him small." For the first time, Rusk's smile faltered. Sirens grew louder. Not the dirty ones. Not the ones Allison could reroute. These came from the outside channels Declan had used after the leak was exposed, agents Cole had verified through people who owed no one in Rusk's circle. Red and blue light washed over the warehouse walls. Declan's gun did not lower. Hannah's voice softened. "You said you wanted him in a room with nothing left to bargain with." Declan breathed once. In, out. Then he lowered the gun. Rusk's expression changed completely. "No," he said. The word came out small. Declan leaned down close to his face. "You do not get Michael's blood. You do not get mine. You do not get hers. You get a cell camera's testimony and every man who ever feared you watching you answer questions under fluorescent lights." Federal agents flooded the warehouse. Cole stepped between them and Hannah until badges were shown and names were verified. Rusk was pulled to his feet. He fought then suddenly and without dignity, bleeding, cursing, twisting against the cuffs. That was when Hannah understood what Declan meant. Clayton Rusk was not terrifying because he was untouchable. He was terrifying because everyone had agreed to treat him that way. The moment hands closed around his wrists, he looked like any other man dragged from the dark into weather. Allison Price was cuffed next. She did not fight. She looked at Hannah once from across the warehouse, face streaked with tears and blood. "I am sorry," Allison said. Hannah did not answer. Not because she had nothing to say, because some apologies needed rooms larger than this one. As agents led Rusk past her, he stopped fighting long enough to look at her. His pale eyes were full of hate. Hannah stepped closer. Cole tensed. Declan did too. She did not touch Rusk. She did not raise the gun. She only held his stare. "Remember me this time." Rusk's face tightened. Then the agents shoved him into the back of a federal vehicle and the door slammed shut. The sound echoed across the port. Final but not clean. Nothing about survival was clean. The rain came harder, washing blood into thin red streams that ran toward the drains. Men moved through smoke and broken glass. Radios crackled. Someone called for medics. Someone else read Allison her rights in a voice that shook despite training. Hannah stood in the middle of it all with the Glock hanging at her side, her hand numb around it. Declan approached slowly. Not like the diner. Not like the estate. This time he looked uncertain. Hannah. She stared at the place where the masked man had fallen from the SUV. "I shot him." Declan's face changed. "Yes. He was trying to kill me." "Yes. That does not make it feel different yet." "No." She looked at him then. His shirt was torn. Blood marked one cheek. His eyes were full of things he had no language for. "You told me to stay in the car. You saved my life." "I know." The words surprised both of them. Hannah looked toward the federal vehicle where Rusk sat behind dark glass. No longer a ghost. No longer untouchable. Then she looked at Declan. "I also chose to get out." He nodded slowly. "Yes." The rain slid down his face, or maybe it was something else. She could not tell. She did not ask. Cole came over and gently took the Glock from her loose hand. "You did good," he said. Hannah almost laughed, but her mouth would not obey. "No," she said. "I survived." Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Yeah." June wrapped a blanket around Hannah's shoulders. It smelled like medical supplies and smoke. Hannah let her. She was too tired to pretend she was not cold. Declan stayed close but did not touch her. For once, that felt like care. The port lights flickered over the wet concrete. The river moved black beyond the warehouse doors. Federal cars pulled away one by one, carrying Rusk Allison and the first real pieces of a story powerful people had spent years trying to bury. Hannah watched until the last set of taillights disappeared into the rain. Only then did her knees give out. Declan caught her before she hit the ground. This time she did not tell him to let go. For a few seconds, Hannah did not understand that she was falling. The warehouse lights stretched above her in long yellow lines. Rain touched her face. Voices blurred into one low roar, radios, boots, sirens, river wind pushing through broken doors. Declan's arm came around her back before the concrete could. This time she did not tell him to let go. She was too tired to hate the hands holding her, too tired to pretend she could stand. Her fingers still felt wrapped around the Glock even after Cole had taken it. Her palm remembered the shape. Her bones remembered the kick. Somewhere near the SUV, June was shouting for space, for light, for somebody to move a vehicle so the ambulance could get closer. Declan lowered Hannah onto the rear seat of the armored SUV, then stepped back. Not far. Just enough. June climbed in beside her and pressed 2 fingers under Hannah's jaw. "Look at me." Hannah tried. June's face swam in and out of focus. "Did he hit you? No. Any sharp pain everywhere?" "That's not helpful." Hannah blinked slowly. "I shot a man." June's expression changed, but her hand stayed steady. "I know. He fell." "Yes. I saw his eyes before he fell." June took the blanket from Hannah's shoulders and wrapped it tighter. "You keep breathing. That is the only job right now." Hannah looked past her through the cracked window. Declan stood in the rain, speaking to federal agents. His white shirt clung to him. Blood streaked one sleeve, though Hannah could not tell if it was his. Cole stood at his side, watching every badge, every hand, every open door. Clayton Rusk was gone. Allison Price was gone. The gunfire had stopped. So why did Hannah still feel hunted? June followed her gaze. Shock does not care that the threat is over. Hannah laughed once. It came out wrong. "Good to know my body is unreasonable. Your body kept you alive. Let it be messy." The ambulance took her to a private clinic on the edge of the city, not a hospital where reporters or crooked clerks could find her name before sunrise. Declan's people moved like ghosts around doors and elevators. Real agents took statements in guarded hallways. Phones rang. Shoes squeaked on polished floors. Someone gave Hannah water she did not drink. A doctor checked her ribs again. Bruised deeper than before. No break. Her shoulder had strained when the SUV was hit. Her ears rang from gunfire in a closed space. Her hands shook so hard the nurse had to hold the cup when she swallowed pills. Declan waited outside the room. He did not come in. That mattered, though Hannah was not ready to let it. Near dawn, June sat beside her bed with her boots on the footrail and a paper cup of coffee in both hands. Hannah stared at the ceiling tiles. Does the first one stay this loud? June did not ask what she meant. Yes. And the second, June's jaw tightened. If it ever gets quiet, that is when you worry. Hannah turned her head. You killed people. Yes. War. After war. Bad rooms where nobody got to leave clean. Hannah looked back at the ceiling. I thought if someone tried to kill me and I stopped them, it would feel simple. It never feels simple the first time. What if it does someday? June's voice softened. Then you come find me, and we talk until it gets complicated again. Hannah closed her eyes. The man's face appeared. She opened them fast. June reached over and placed a hand on the bed rail, not on Hannah. Close enough to offer, not close enough to take. After a long moment, Hannah put her fingers over June's. She did not cry loudly. That would have taken too much strength. The tears slid sideways into her hair while the clinic woke around them. Declan came in only after Hannah asked for him. He stood in the doorway first, as if the room itself required permission. Hannah sat up against the pillows. Her hair was still damp from the rain, her face pale under bruises, her eyes dark from sleeplessness. She looked smaller in the bed and more dangerous because of it. Declan looked at the chair beside her. May I? She nodded. He sat. For a while neither of them spoke. The silence between them had changed. Before it had been full of secrets, strategy, and the sound of locked doors. Now it held something heavier. Almost grief. Almost trust. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Rusk is in federal custody, Declan said. Hannah looked at him. Real custody. Verified. Different district, different chain of command. Cole has people watching the people watching him. That sounds exhausting. It is. Allison, alive, talking. Hannah looked toward the window where morning light pressed pale against the blinds. She said, "Sorry." "I heard." I did not answer. "You did not owe her one." Hannah nodded slowly. Her fingers moved over the blanket. "Did you want to kill him?" Declan did not pretend to misunderstand. "Yes. Even after the agents came." "Yes. Why didn't you?" His eyes stayed on hers. "Because you were right." The words were plain. No armor around them. Hannah waited for more. Declan gave it to her, and because I heard myself in his voice, I did not like what answered. The room seemed to still around that. Hannah looked down. "I do not know what I am supposed to feel." "Then do not decide yet." A tired smile touched her mouth. "You giving me permission?" "No." He looked at his hands. "I am trying to learn not to." That almost broke her. Not because it was enough, because it sounded like a beginning spoken by a man who hated beginnings. Declan Ward built endings. He closed doors. He buried threats. He solved problems with money, fear, or fire. But there he sat, wounded and uncertain, trying to become something Hannah could stand beside without shrinking. She leaned back. "Walt, he is awake, complaining." Her eyes filled before she could stop them. "That sounds like him." "He asked if you were eating." Hannah laughed softly. "Of course he did. June cleared a visit in a few hours if you feel strong enough." "I do." "You do not." "I said I do." Declan almost smiled. "There she is." Hannah looked at him sharply, but there was no heat behind it. At noon, she visited Walt Jennings. His hospital room smelled of disinfectant, weak coffee, and carnations someone from the diner had brought in a chipped vase. Walt lay propped against pillows with a bandage near his temple and bruising down one side of his face. He looked older, smaller. Then he saw Hannah and scowled. "You look like hell." She stopped in the doorway, one hand over her ribs. "You look worse." His face cracked into a smile. Hannah crossed the room too quickly, winced, and leaned down so he could hug her without pulling at the tubes. Walt's arms closed around her with careful strength. For the first time since the diner, she felt like a person instead of a witness. "I thought you were dead," he whispered. "Almost was." "Don't do that again. I'll put it on my schedule." He pulled back and looked at her face, her bruises, the thin hospital bracelet still on her wrist. "That ward man came by." Hannah stiffened. "He did, sat right there like a funeral director with better shoes. Paid the bills, said my diner's getting fixed, said I've got guards until the devil forgets my address." "That sounds like him." Walt studied her. "You trust him?" Hannah sat carefully in the chair beside the bed. "I do not know. That is probably the smartest answer." She looked at the vase of carnations. "He saved my life." "Sounds like it." "He also used me." "Sounds like that too." Hannah looked at him then. Walt reached for her hand. His skin was thin and warm. "Listen to me, girl. You do not owe a man your whole life because he helped you keep it." Her throat closed. "He says I can walk. Then make sure you do it at least once, even if you walk back." Hannah swallowed hard. "That, your advice. That is an old man telling you what I wish somebody told me when I was young and stupid enough to call need love." She held his hand tighter. Outside the room, Declan stood in the hallway with Cole. Hannah could see his shape through the narrow window in the door. He did not try to listen. He did not enter. For once, he stayed outside a room that was not his. Over the next 2 weeks, the world cracked open around Clayton Rusk. Allison Price spoke for hours behind secured doors. Her voice gave prosecutors names, account numbers, shell companies, false charities, judges, agents, clerks, transport routes, and the places where bodies had been turned into missing person reports. She did not become innocent by telling the truth. Nobody pretended she did. But the truth had weight, and once placed on the right table, it crushed men who had spent years believing they were untouchable. Hannah gave her statement 3 times. The first time she shook. The second she got angry. The third she told the story from the beginning without looking away from anyone in the room. The silver Cadillac. The black briefcase. Dale Morgan's limp. Clayton Rusk's pale eyes. Allison Price smoking in the passenger seat like fear had dressed itself in diamonds. Her lawyer sat beside her. Her lawyer, chosen by her, paid through an account Declan could not touch once it was transferred. That had been her condition. Declan accepted it. No argument. No correction. No careful sentence that tried to sound like agreement while leaving control in his pocket. He simply nodded and said, "Good." That more than the money told Hannah something had shifted. The estate changed, too. Or maybe Hannah did. The first week back, she stayed in the room on the second floor and slept in small broken pieces. June came by with tea and pain medicine. Cole checked the locks only when asked. Luis brought food from restaurants around the city because, as he said, nobody should survive gunfire and then be forced to eat plain toast. Sometimes Hannah laughed. Sometimes she did not. Some nights she woke with her hand searching for a gun that was no longer on the nightstand. Other nights she stood in the shower until the water cooled, watching clean tile and seeing the diner floor instead. Declan never entered without knocking, not once. The first time he knocked and asked if she wanted dinner, she said no. He said, "All right," and left. She sat on the bed afterwards, staring at the closed door, confused by how much space a simple answer could give her. The second time she said yes. Dinner was in the small breakfast room, not the long, formal dining room that made every meal feel like a negotiation. June was there, and Cole and Luis, who told a story about stealing his uncle's car at 15 and driving it into a bayou because he believed movies more than gravity. Even Cole smiled at that. Declan listened more than he spoke. Hannah noticed the way his people looked at him. Not worship, not fear alone. Something complicated. Loyalty with scars in it. Later she found him in the library. The folders were gone from the table. No crime scene photographs, no bank records, no dead men staring up from glossy paper. Just 2 glasses of water and the sound of rain outside. He stood when she entered. "You do not have to do that," she said. "I know." But he remained standing until she sat. Then he sat too. Hannah looked around the room. "No files tonight? No. No strategy? No." "Are you ill?" His mouth curved faintly. "Possibly." The silence came easier this time. Hannah leaned back, one arm wrapped carefully around her ribs. "I keep thinking about the bunker." Declan's face lost the almost smile. "So do I. You were right that I could have died if I walked out." "Yes, and I was right that you had no right to lock me in." He held her gaze. "Yes." The word was quiet. Complete. Hannah waited for the explanation. There was none. Declan looked at his hands. "I have spent years believing that if I could keep someone breathing, the method mattered less than the result. Michael died because I did not move fast enough. After that, I made speed into a god." He drew a slow breath. "With you, I called fear strategy. I called control protection. I told myself the lock was temporary, so it was not a cage." His eyes lifted. It was a cage. Hannah's throat tightened. "I need you to understand something." "I am listening." She believed him. That was dangerous. She said it anyway. When people lock you in rooms young enough, the door stays in your body. It does not matter if the room is ugly or beautiful. It does not matter if someone says they love you from the other side. The lock is louder than the words. Declan looked wounded, but he did not look away. I am sorry. Not polished, not strategic, not followed by but. Just sorry. Hannah looked at the rain on the windows. I am not ready to forgive everything. I did not ask you to. That helps. I am learning. She looked back at him, slowly. This time he did smile. Yes. Days passed. Then weeks. Magnolia. Stop reopened with new windows, a repaired sign, and Walt sitting at the counter like a king returned to a very greasy throne. Hannah came on the first day but did not wear the uniform. She stood outside in the parking lot for a long time, listening to highway noise, smelling coffee and fryer oil through the door. Her body remembered the fear, but it also remembered Walt's laugh from inside. She went in. The bell rang overhead. Everyone turned. For a heartbeat, she was back in the blood and rain. Then Walt called from behind the counter. About time. Coffee is not going to judge itself. Hannah breathed out. The diner was not the same. Neither was she. That afternoon, she helped pour coffee for old customers who pretended not to stare at the bruises fading on her jaw. A trucker left a $20 tip and did not ask questions. Someone had placed flowers near the register where the tile had cracked. Hannah touched the counter once, then let go. Declan came by near closing. Not in a black SUV, not with men crowding the door. He came alone, though Hannah was sure Cole was somewhere nearby pretending not to exist. Declan sat at the counter. Walt looked him up and down. You the reason my insurance man had a nervous breakdown. Declan's face stayed serious. Probably. Walt poured him coffee. It's terrible. Declan took a sip. Yes. Hannah smiled before she could stop herself. Walt saw it. Walt saw everything. A month after the port, Hannah found an apartment above a bakery in the Marini. The staircase leaned. The windows rattled. The water pressure had opinions. The front door stuck when it rained. She loved it immediately. Declan stood in the middle of the empty living room while she opened cabinets and checked locks herself. It is small, he said. It is mine. The neighborhood gets loud. I know. The lock needs replacing. She looked at him. He caught himself. If you want, Cole can recommend someone. You choose. You pay them or I do your call. Hannah watched him struggle not to take over. It should not have touched her. It did. I'll choose, she said. He nodded. Good. She leaned against the kitchen counter. You hate this. Yes. At least you are honest. I am trying not to make my discomfort your problem. That sounded rehearsed. June helped. Hannah laughed. It startled both of them. The apartment filled slowly. A second-hand couch, a kitchen table with one uneven leg, curtains from a thrift store, a plant June insisted was impossible to kill, which Hannah considered a challenge. Walt gave her a coffee mug from the diner. Luis brought a toolbox. Cole installed nothing until Hannah told him which lock she wanted and where to put the spare key. She did not give Declan a key. He did not ask. The first night alone, rain tapped the windows. Not storm rain. Soft rain. City rain. Hannah sat on the floor with her back against the couch eating noodles from a paper container. No guards inside, no marble bathroom, no silent halls. Downstairs, the bakery mixer started before dawn. Somewhere across the street, a couple argued about parking. A siren passed and faded. The noise should have annoyed her. Instead, it reminded her that the world was close enough to touch. Her phone buzzed. Declan. Storm's coming in. You safe? Hannah looked at the door. The new lock gleamed under the cheap hallway light. She typed, I'm safe. Then she waited. The 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. "Good," he wrote. She set the phone down, picked it up again. "You can come by." A moment passed. Then his reply came. "Now." She smiled. "If you want." He arrived 20 minutes later, soaked from the rain, standing in the hallway with no coat over his suit and uncertainty in his eyes. Declan Ward. The man, powerful people feared, stood outside her crooked apartment door, looking like he did not know where to put his hands. Hannah opened the door and leaned against the frame. "You are getting rain on my floor." His mouth curved. "I can leave. You can knock first next time." "I did. I know. I liked it." Rain dripped from his hair onto the hallway boards. She stepped back. Not because she had nowhere else to go. Not because danger had pushed her into his arms. Not because protection had locked every other door. Because this door opened from the inside. Declan did not move until she nodded. Then he crossed the threshold slowly as if entering something sacred and not a tiny apartment above a bakery with bad plumbing. Hannah closed the door behind him. Outside, rain softened the city. Inside, for the first time in a long time, she did not count the exits before she breathed.